Hey guys, how are you doing? In this drill, we're gonna talk about Netflix's growth strategy. And as you know, we're gonna get a case question before we do the chart interpretation drill that's gonna be related, of course, to the chart interpretation question. So the case question is, you've been hired to help Netflix, a US-based subscription video on demand service, SVOD, to help them develop a growth strategy for the next 4 years. How would you help them develop their strategy? So draw your structure for this question. It's going to help you a bit with your chart interpretation question. Not necessarily, it might not help you a lot, but at least you're going to have put some thought into it, and you're going to have some context to the question. I won't show you my answer for this because I want to focus on chart interpretation, not on framework questions. We have other chapters for this, but it's worth it for you to draw yours anyway. And by the way, your answer might or might not contain what's going to be shown in the charts. The interviewer is going to show you them and ask you what you think anyway. Okay, so your answer is not going to affect what the interviewer is going to ask you afterwards. Alright, so if you're done with your structure, you can move on and look at the chart. So this is the exhibit 1 that the interviewer is going to show you, and they're going to ask you, what do you think? So take your time, think about it, and then hear my answer. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to know here before I start analyzing this chart is, what does SVOD mean? I didn't quite catch that. And it means subscription video on demand. So this might sound silly because it was on the case question and because the names of the players are there, so you can kind of understand what it is from that. But anyway, if you're not sure, you should ask. It might sound silly, but it's a lot better than getting it wrong in your answer. Okay? Now, my insights, what I can see from this chart is Netflix is in 90% of households with SVOD, so they're in around 45% of all households, and 50% of those have any kind of SVOD. So they're in a lot of the households that already have SVOD. Number 2, half of the US households don't yet have SVOD at all. And number 3, at least 30% of households with SVOD have more than one subscription. Okay, so what this tells me is, since we are in 90% of the homes that have SVOD, Netflix's growth impediment is not competition. It is those 50% that don't have SVOD. So acceptance of SVOD and alternative means of entertainment are actually the main growth impediment, and what we should be fighting against if we want to grow in the US. So it would be something like television and other activities. To develop our growth strategy, the next step would be to understand why people don't have SVOD. So is it content? Is it price? Is it perceived as expensive? Or is it the alternatives? To only then decide whether to focus on content, marketing, or expansion abroad, if in the end it seems to us like there is not significant room for growth in the US. Now, I want to show you an alternative answer for this, because your answer could be very different and still be correct. So it seems like with over 45% of households already signed up to Netflix, there's little room for growth there in the US. So although we could upsell to these customers or battle TV for the other 50%, we'd get faster growth and higher returns expanding abroad. The logical next steps would be choosing their new markets based on size of the market, so how much you can get from it, and content synergy. So would the content that we already use in the US work for that specific market? Would we need to develop new content exclusive for there? Would that new content be used in the US? And how much of it we would need to do? And also, of course, customers can easily switch to other SVODs. So we can never lose sight of our current base's satisfaction and churn rate. Amazon Prime, for one, tends to be inside households more every day. for reasons other than SVOD. So people are signing Amazon Prime for other reasons, and they also getting their SVOD. So it would be simple for them not to subscribe to Netflix. So we have to always pay a high attention to the customer satisfaction and the churn rate. Okay, so now let's talk about this. I showed you two different answers, and I gave an extra in the second answer. It would be okay if you didn't think of this, but switching costs are very low in this market for these customers. So it's an important factor, and it's definitely an extra, and you would get points with your interviewer for mentioning this. Now, in my first answer, I hardly mentioned expansion abroad. I just barely mentioned it, and it was the main focus of the second answer. It's okay if you can conclude one thing or the other, as long as you think of the main issues. One of them here is we could expand abroad, and the other one is there is a 50% gap that's from people that are not early adopters, are not common adopters for SVOD. We can fight there, but it may be harder than fighting for the previous 50%. Okay? And now the interviewer would say, well, this is all very interesting, but I want you to take a look at this exhibit number 2 and tell me what you think. Now, take your time to look at it. It's a lot of data. And there are 2 questions that I would like answer if I were doing this case. And so I'm going to answer them to you before you start your answer. And they are, what is CAGR? It could be, you could not know it, and it means compound average growth rate. And the second one, which is important, is what is within each of those categories of expenses. So necessities are basically food. Semi-necessities is clothing, healthcare, and housing. And discretionary expenses are basically entertainment, education, transportation, and communications. Okay? Now take your time, think of your answer, and only then listen to mine. So I'm going to talk about one chart at a time. Okay? First, in this first chart, I can see that discretionary expenses will grow exponentially and become around 45% of total expenses versus 25% and 35% previously over the next years until 2020. And so there seems like there are potential large opportunities in the entertainment industry. And in the next chart, we can see that population with internet access in China is at least 3 times larger than the American. And next, growth trend should continue with increasing urbanization. So it seems like the population is getting urban and internet access is increasing as a percentage. And also with population expansion, this trend of growth should continue. So my take from this is there's a clear large opportunity in China with more people with internet access willing to spend more with entertainment each day. However, there might not be so much content synergy with that market, and Netflix may need to start a full content operation to dock there because of language, habits, and rules. So to better understand that, we need to understand the Chinese video content habits and the rules to show American content there, the laws. So do they enjoy watching foreign shows, American specifically? How much of our current content is even allowed in China? Okay? And we can compare the investment needed to develop operations in China versus expanding in other markets like Europe or even India, which also speaks English. Okay? So this was my answer. If yours is different but has the necessary elements that we saw in the step-by-step video, it's fine. It's okay, even if it's different. Alright? I hope you liked this video, and I hope it helped you, and I see you in the next one.